All right, I will call the November 4th Board of Commissioners meeting to order. We were in a budget workshop prior to this. We will be going back into budget workshop after this board meeting also. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. All right, are there any disclosures of interest? Seeing none. Previous board meeting minutes from October 21st.
Move approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the previous board meeting minutes. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Review the agenda. We need to pull at the applicant's request under land use management, item 2, public hearing and consideration for conservation subdivision. That applicant has asked to pull that from the agenda. Any other
That
changes?
is the only change, Chair.
Okay.
Move to approve the amended agenda.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we approve the amended agenda. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Consent agenda, there are 7 items.
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda on all 7 items. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same. Motion carries. We're on to department reports, and we have land use management. Public hearing considering the request for an assembly controls license for the Wheat Trail Festival.
Ordinance. The application that is included in the packet was submitted by Will Erickson for an assembly license. The application is for a rural outdoor music festival to be held July 23rd through the 25th, 2026, to promote mental health and provide resources for the farming and rural community in partnership with the Live In Foundation. The festival will be located at 16764 342nd Way, Goodhue, Minnesota. It's on a overall about a 200-acre site owned by Daniel Ryan. Just to recap, the county's assembly control ordinance does require that licenses be obtained for any planned assembly event or ticket sale where you're selling over where you're planning over 500 people. There are some exclusions in the ordinance that allow the county to exclude the county fairs, breakfast on the farm. There's a few exclusions in there. It doesn't appear that this would be an exclusion, so therefore it's being brought to you all for consideration. The way that the ordinance is set up is it really allows the county staff and all the departments to weigh in depending on what type of event it is. So in this case, I routed the application to several county departments for feedback and input. Most of them got back to me with, either I have no concerns or we should attach some conditions to help, maybe plan ahead for this event. So the feedback that I did receive specifically from Public Works and Emergency Management and the Sheriff's Office are included as conditions of approval. In this case, I would say the big thing to know for the county is that the property is located in Bell Creek Township on a township road, but the route to get to the site will be through, county roads. The actual township road, is an area that I feel should be restricted to no on-street parking. But that would be, of course, a township decision. We are proposing a condition in here based on feedback from Public Works that there would be no parking allowed on any streets leading up to the event. And the big reason for that really is to make sure that if there has to be an emergency management vehicle getting to the site, that they have clear access to the site. Another thing to note here is that the property owners are proposing overnight camping. Overnight camping is one of the things that the ordinance says, if there is an overnight component to the event, that there needs to be a separate conditional use permit reviewed by the Planning Commission in conjunction with the event. So the applicant, Mr. Erickson, did submit a separate conditional use permit application. That public hearing notice got published and will be heard at the Planning Commission meeting on November 17th. Time is of the essence for the applicant here in order for them to book the performers. So I wanted to get this on the agenda before the CUP is heard. The other note I would say here is that I learned from Health and Human Services that overnight camping does also require a permit from MDH. And so that is something that I made the property owner and the applicant aware of as well. It sounds like they are working with MDH for the overnight camping. So with that, within the last month, our staff has kind of weighed in on this, and overall the recommendation is to approve the event. And again, it would be a one-time license for the Wheat Trail Festival with the conditions outlined in the staff report. There is a public hearing required. I believe Mr. Erickson is here as well in case there are any questions.
Just for clarity, you have 12 conditions on the assemblies.
I do.
Questions from the board for staff? Okay, is there a motion to open for public hearing?
So moved.
Moved and second, we open for public hearing on a request for a assemblies control license for the Wheat Trail Festival. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? We are in public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak to this application? Anyone wishing to speak to this application? Third and final time. Anyone wishing to speak to this application?
Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
Moved and second, we close public hearing. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carries. Back to us.
Motion to approve the land use recommendation for the assembly license with the 12 conditions.
Second.
Moved and seconded that we move this issue and approve it. Any further discussion? Do you have anything from the attorney's office? Obviously, you weighed in on it.
I don't have anything to add to the board. Thank you.
All right. All right, all those in favor say aye.
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 Same. Motion carries. I hope it goes well, Will. All right, the second item was pulled. The third one is a final plat for the Omen property.
The board is being asked to consider a request submitted by the applicant and property owners, the Omen Farms LLC at 3494 23rd Avenue Way, Cannon Falls, Minnesota, for a final plat. The application impacts the following tax parcels. I won't read them, but they are in the staff report of record. The proposed plat is titled Omen Addition and comprises 123 acres with 5 proposed lots. A preliminary plat was reviewed and a public hearing occurred on July 21st, 2025, and was approved by the county board in August of this year. Included with the staff report is a copy of the application that was submitted, an email from Keith Omen, who is one of the members of the LLC, regarding the staff's proposed recommendation for an easement, which I'll talk about later, location maps prepared by staff, and then the draft meeting minutes from the Planning Commission meeting of October 20th. A couple things to note. The entire property is zoned A2, agricultural district. Within the plat area, there is one allowed, or one density unit that I call it, I guess I call it, is a density unit would be a potential building site. Because it's A2, the building density requirements limit houses to no more than 12 per section, or no more than one home per quarter section. So in this case, there is one density unit in this entire 123 acres available. The Planning Commission, as I mentioned, has reviewed this, is forwarding a recommendation of approval. The main issue here that I do want to point out is that Goodhue County owns some landlocked property between this property and Lake Bilsby. On the county property, north of this platted area, there is a boat launch. That boat launch is used to access Lake Bilsby. It's my understanding it's used obviously in the summer by boats, but it's also used in the wintertime for snowmobiles and getting ice shacks moved on and off the lake. A little bit of research that I was able to do is that it doesn't look like there is actually a written recorded easement in place that I was able to find. It does look like, when I look at aerial photography, that access has been used at least since 1971, which is the last like really clear aerial photography that I was able to pull for this area. So that's, 50 plus years of use. The land use staff did approach the Omen Farms about granting of an easement that was requested, and essentially the response was, we are not willing to grant an easement. So with that, the plat is being presented to you without an easement in place. The legal kind of ramifications of that, I did discuss a little bit with the county attorney. The concern here would be if the property owner would ever say, we don't want you going over our property. I can't predict, I can't see into the future. I don't know if that's gonna happen or not. The Omens have been really good to work with, but again, nothing is in writing. It's my understanding that the county cannot necessarily force an easement. We can just negotiate easements. And it's also my understanding that there can't necessarily be a forced condition of approval with the plat to say that you are required to dedicate an easement, but we could request one. And I guess my last sort of comment here is that it is my feeling that the county has evidence that this is being used clearly for public use. It's not being used to benefit one property owner. It's not being used to specifically just, benefit one business or one property owner. It has a public use. So my feeling on the law on if we were to ever have to use like a prescriptive easement argument, that would apply here. So like I said, it's an issue that I wanted to bring to your attention. It's a little bit unresolved at this point. I would recommend that down the road, the county land committee and the property owner sit down and talk about this. Like I said, it's been hanging out there for 50 plus years. It should get resolved. I don't know what the answer is in terms of how wide the easement is, the actual location, if there's a financial trade-off there, who's in charge of maintenance. All those things should really be negotiated and talked about in that easement negotiation process. The other thing I will bring up is it's my understanding that the land committee has also talked about a possible land swap in this area. I don't know a whole lot of details on what that would look like, but there is some agricultural land that the county does own on our land that is leased to the Omen family. So it's an area where there's kind of a lot of moving parts on it. The plat itself, really, my understanding from the Omens is it's really just to divide up the land amongst family. It's not necessarily to develop property or to build anything. It's really just a formality, being that the county ordinance requires anytime you split more than 3 tracts of land, you're required to plat it instead of just doing a meets and bounds survey. So with that, long way of saying, Planning Commission's recommendation is to approve, my recommendation is to approve the plat. And then my hope is in the future, the county can negotiate an easement or a land swap with the property owner.
Questions?
How do we have access to that ag land right now?
We do not have legal access to it.
Don't we have to be allowed legal access to our land? Isn't that? Everybody that owns lands has to have access to it, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now we have access through this driveway, right, to the, my understanding, correct? So, and it's also my understanding, I haven't had any conversations with the Omens, but I'm assuming at this point that things will remain the same as they are right now with our use of that access going forward. Now, if that changes, that puts us in a different legal position, I think, with regard to whether or not we want to pursue the prescriptive easement, and I think there might be some other legal theories to approach as well for continued use of that roadway. But I think that's an issue down the road, and that's an issue for whether or not the Omens decide, you know, we don't want the county to use that anymore. Right now, I don't think that's the case. I could be wrong. I don't know if the Omens are here. But as of now, I think we continue to use it as is and try to negotiate a formal, you know, access and, you know, formal easement that can be recorded.
Didn't you just say that they are not in favor of a easement for us?
The email, and I like I said, I've had a lot of conversations with Keith Oman, but I asked him to put it in writing, and essentially the position, as I understand it, is that they were not supportive of spending additional surveying dollars or time to go back and add an easement on the plat. But that does not mean that they're opposed to working with the county in the future. They just didn't want to update their plat as drafted.
That's Scott.
I'm just curious, do you know if the answer would be different if we used our surveyors, or if we asked for something less like a cartway?
I would say that's all, my feeling is that they would be open to that, but like I said, you know, Mr. Keith Oman is here. My conversations with them, strictly from land use and my authority is, hey, I'm noticing that there's a landlocked piece of land here. Could we get an easement? The answer was, no, I'm not gonna, you know, pay for those additional dollars to send out my survey crew to update the plat.
I just think we could do that, and I mean, it's been there for 54 years, so that's obviously what it is.
I think part of this has to do with the LLC and getting it, from my understanding, out of the LLC as multiple owners to a single owner of this parcel, and then getting easement is much easier than going through all of the papers and all of the legal stuff you have to do with an LLC. So I think there's an easier path forward. We all realize, I think all of us realize, this was a mistake when the Land Commission, or Land, I think it was called Land Commission, that parcel was supposed to be in Goodhue County's name, and it wasn't. And it got missed in that whole process. I think there's a path forward. I don't see any reason to hold up this split and platting for that piece. I think there's a path forward once it gets out of the LLC.
So worst case scenario, though, we look at, do we have other options for people to access the lake here for the ice fishing? And so is this, if this gets eliminated and the landowners say, nope, we own it now, we want nothing to do with the county, what other options do we have for the public to get to the lake?
There's always a path to get access, legal access to landlocked property through the statute. So there's always a process to get there. It might be ugly, but there's a process to get access to landlocked property.
Wouldn't that be easier to do it now before we close
Well,
it
it's
down?
not easier because they're in an LLC, and for them to work through all the LLC part of it is what's complicating getting an easement. Once this is split into 3 owners, is my understanding, then an individual owner giving an easement is much easier than doing it with the LLC.
Can we
Is
hear-
that,
Yes.
Can we hear from the owner and see what his take is on it?
yeah?
There's a button on the back of the mic.
Bottom, there you go.
Thank you.
Please state your name so we got it for the
Keith
record.
Oman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so I represent the LLC. I've been trying to get this split for a while, and you guys probably have reviewed this before. There are 3 owners of the LLC. We are partners. What we are doing here is dividing the land into 3 separate pieces. So therefore, the LLC will not own that property anymore. My brother will end up with that property. He is not opposed to giving you guys an easement if the county's willing to work with him. I just don't see the point of us, the LLC, trying to get this worked out at this time. It's pretty much a simple split. It sounds big because there's 5 parcels there, but it's not that big of a deal. It's only 3 different parcels, basically, for 3 different people. And all we're doing is dissolving the LLC. So as far as the access goes, that's been there since I was this tall. And there was no county access there, legal access anyway. But there's other county property all around this that doesn't have access to it. So I guess at this point, I would just like to get through this split, get the LLC divided up, and then you can work with Kevin to figure this out, if that works for you guys.
Just scares me to look into the future and say, you know, Kevin's not here, and all of a sudden he says, well, I didn't say that, you know? And now we have to go through another statute to get access to our property. But
Commissioner, I think that's going to be true regardless. If there's a disagreement and the landowner decides not to give us the easement, we're going to be in litigation to resolve this issue, whether or not it's done now through this process or it's done later with the, you know, the new owner. And that's, I really think the bigger principle here is I don't believe the county can use the platting process to gain an advantage on trying to get this easement. I think that would be an inappropriate use of the platting process. It's a completely separate issue. We tried to join it together because I think it made sense. If there was going to be an easement, that it be represented on the plat, but we don't actually have an easement right now. So I think the plat as presented accurately shows the interest in the property, and you know we'll have to work through the rest of it later if the board approves this. But I don't think the board at this point should use the platting process to kind of gain it, you know, seemingly to gain an advantage with the negotiation on the easement. I think that might get us into some trouble.
All right,
If
thank
there
you.
was a private landowner, we wouldn't be having this discussion. I think you have to look at it from that aspect. If the private landowner wasn't in here saying, you got to get me access, we would approve this plat in a heartbeat because they've met everything. So I can't see that this is a reason to hold it up.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move to approve to adopt the staff report into record and approve the request.
Is there a second? Okay. Any further discussion?
Well, I wondered if we should have the record reflect that the county board, it's their intent to pursue the easement so that it's clear that the Oman family's aware of that and at least it's documented that that would be our intent.
Correct. I think that's a good point,
And
and
it
I think the
may be-
county does have a legitimate legal interest in that easement. I think that we could enforce later, and by approving the plat today, we are not saying that we agree, you know, we're giving up that
No,
opportunity.
no, we believe,
It may not be easement, we may want to buy that right away to get there.
yeah,
It may totally be different than
Yeah.
an easement, so.
well, that the county has had access, and it's certainly the hope that the county will continue to maintain access through a legally appropriate means.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Same, motion carries. Thank you. Thank you for being here and speaking to this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next, probation juvenile detention bed contract.
Good news, Rhonda.
think when you're talking about juvenile detention, it's really hard to be
There
good
is
news.
not good news.
It's really hard to be good news.
There is no good news. So as my letter indicated, we have not utilized the bed as much as we had hoped to. And part of that was the transportation issues we faced with having it 2 hours away. We actually had several apprehension and detention orders that were not fulfilled because the Red Wing PD just did not have staff to get our adolescents there. So I talked with the juvenile agents, and we really think it's best to not have the contract for 2026. We will do like we did in the old days. We will get on the phone and start calling around and find an appropriate bed. We still may use Houston County. They have not been full. I don't think getting a bed there is going to be an issue for if we have to. But we'll try Dakota County first. That's obviously the closest, so we'll start with those closer places first. And I also hope we have that savings, also knowing that it's out of our control if we get a juvenile who is in a high-profile case and they end up in detention for months. That is completely out of our control. So I hope we have that savings, but we just don't know, depending on what the activity will be. As Steve knows, we have no control.
So it's a possible $50,000+ savings? Is that what I'm reading?
It will probably be less than that. It would be about 36,000.
36,000?
Yeah, it would be less than that. And that is hoping we don't utilize those beds, but
And
we have, you know.
I'm a little bit concerned, not a little bit, a lot concerned, that if we have someone and a bed there is the right place, or a bed anywhere is the right place, that transportation is the issue, not getting them to the right place. That concerns me.
Well, the right place can be Dakota County. It doesn't
It
have to
can
be
be.
Houston.
So are you saying if they don't go there,
They
where
will
we have
go
a bed,
somewhere else.
they end up at Dakota County?
Or somewhere else, correct. We will call around to find an appropriate bed for them. And Houston County might end up being that if all the other beds are full.
And does that happen?
Yes, that will probably happen. But we also know Houston County has not been filling up, so that they're a pretty sure shot of utilizing them if the other beds are full in the state.
Well, go ahead.
By law, who's required to transport?
Law enforcement is,
Like whoever arrests them?
whoever arrests, correct. And we're in conversation with Red Wing PD about the issues that have happened, so supervision staff was not aware of what was happening.
So, and then that's kind of where, I hope we can work through that, because if a local PD can't transport, can the county transport and bill the local PD?
We'd have to ask Marty that question.
And that's not probably for today, but I hope the transportation issue gets solved, because if a juvenile should be there and we don't get them there because somebody doesn't want to drive that far, I got real problems with that.
Correct.
We
And
need whoever drives them,
Right.
they need to get there.
Correct. And we've even had, we've talked about having I have to send 2 agents if we transport, and I'm going to pull them from somewhere at 3 a.m. to get them somewhere. I mean, it's just not possible for the juvenile agents to do it, because I need both of them if they're going to do it.
And I'll be honest, I'm concerned. I think Houston County made a good faith effort to try to find a solution for juveniles in southeast Minnesota.
Yes.
And having partners that are willing to contract for beds is a piece of that we're going to transfer that issue to them a little bit. And
Correct.
I'm always in favor of working with other counties if it works out. And so I'm a little bit hesitant, but I will go along with it today.
Houston County has been excellent to work with. They've had some learning curves, which, they've let our adolescents have contact out with everybody outside. So we had to say, you can only have contact with parents, probation officers, case managers. But that's been a learning curve from going from adult detention center to a juvenile facility, right? Not the same rules apply. But they have been great to work with. They have complied with all of our requests. They have been great about allowing Zoom court, so we did not have extra transports going back and forth just for court alone. So they have been wonderful to work with.
Continue to work with them, so. Any other questions? You need a motion to not contract,
The contract for 26,
deny the contract with them.
correct.
So moved.
Second?
Moved and second, we deny contracting with Houston County for juvenile beds, for a juvenile bed. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carries. Thank you, Rhonda, and thanks for your work on that. And hopefully we can find solutions to transportation that work. Finance and Taxpayer Services.
EDA.
DDA. Tessa, welcome. And Jessica, welcome. Well, we were just going to skip over it, but I guess we're not. Some people have to keep me on task.
Good morning, Commissioners. What we have before you today, you're familiar with. We've been with DDA for 3 years now, doing ongoing maintenance of our job descriptions as well as market analysis. And so we have before you a report outlining DDA's recommendations, and I'll let you take it from there. If that's okay.
Thank you. This has been before the Personnel Committee too. We talked about it as well, this is per their recommendation. Like Jessica said, our role every year is to do a market analysis on all the positions. That has been done. The board has received that information. Right now, it's been in closed session because of union negotiation. This is strictly on just the job classification review process. So every year, DDA works with supervisors and employees to do 1/3-ish of the job descriptions, and that process is to review the job description, look at updating it, and then look at the classification of that. And so what do we look at when we're looking at the job description? We're not looking at the person involved, we're looking at what's needed for that position. So education, experience, managerial know-how, problem-solving, accountability, impact on end results, freedom to act, and the working conditions. So in the review for this year, we use the same process. We updated a little bit, so we met with department heads in the beginning to talk to them if they had other concerns like career ladder, desire, or recruitment or retention issues. They worked with their HR manager in the beginning. Once we went through the process, they looked at their forms, filled out a review form, sent back to DDA. We wrote the job description and said, here's your updates. Did we catch it? If no, let us know. There was an appeal. And then we sent back the classifications and said, you know, your job is classified correctly, or we're proposing it move here. And there was an appeal process with that as well. I went through the appeals, I worked with the HR manager, and then we had a meeting with the department heads to go over that too, so that there was clarity on their expectations, their desires, just information from them so we would understand kind of what they were asking for with that. So before you today, we have the classification changes would be HR generalist from 112 to 113, HRIS payroll analyst from 110 to 111, HR specialist 110 to 111, HR manager 117 to 118, probation officer from 112 to 113, court services director from 117 to 118, accountant 1 from 109 to 111, accountant 2 111 to 113, tax and election manager from 113 to 114, appraiser 2 from 110 to 111, property transfer specialist from 109 to 111, land use management director from 118 to 119, court or county surveyor from 118 to 119, assistant veteran service officer from 110 to 112. With this process, we also had some new jobs that came through, and I just wanted to put them in as well. So HHS Deputy Director 2, 120, Chief Deputy Surveyor 117, and Evidence-Based Practices Coordinator at a 115. So these are the classifications specifically that we're recommending. We went through the review, again, the appeal process, listened to the department heads, read the appeals, and this are our recommendation.
Questions? And as Tessa said, we went through Personnel Committee with it, and I don't think there was any real questions from us. Part of the ongoing process to keep us, hopefully keep us up to date, and hopefully if we do this correctly, we should be always evaluating and putting people in the right job class. And then if our settlements are similar to other county settlements, we should continue to stay, the grid should continue to stay in pace with other counties.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, like I've said before, it's really like your pavement improvement plan. We want to look at your jobs every year, so we hopefully have minimal budget disruption. Just like you would with the pavement improvement, you do seal coating and crack filling and all of that to maintain it. Your employees are your greatest asset, but they're your biggest expense. And we would rather, when we do the market, like the board gave us direction to where they wanted to be, if it starts falling behind, we would flag that and put that into this process and say, is it the industry? Is it the job? You know, why is this job starting to fall? So we don't have a huge wage gap like we did when we first started, so that we are trying to make sure. And the other thing is, part of this is career ladders to help you with retention recruitment issues. And I would say part of it is kind of succession planning. When someone's retiring, how are we best filling that position? It doesn't have to look like it always has in the past. It's having those conversations with the department heads to make sure we're meeting their needs, and keeping good employees here if we can. So out of this process, I think it was important that we did create some career ladders to distinguish some jobs and to have some internal growth. And I think the conversations we had with the department heads were good. I would encourage employees to remember that through this process, you know, they use the job description to review form. They do that. If there's an appeal, they work with their supervisor and HR manager, and it comes through this process. And then with the department head, again, we're trying to be transparent, and we want them to be too, to follow that process so we can make it easy for them and hopefully understandable.
Questions? Motion to approve this adjustment, reclassification.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We adopt the reclassifications as presented. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carries. Thank you. Thank you for all your work.
Thank you.
Now we're on to taxpayer and finance. City of Winnemingo TIF proposal.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Morning.
The Finance Department received notice of a proposed TIF District 3-2 from the City of Wanamingo on October 17th. As required by law, staff distributed that information on October 17th via email and placed it on today's board agenda. The board is not being asked to approve the project. This is solely at the discretion of the Wanamingo City Council. As outlined in the notification, the City of Wanamingo is proposing a 25-year redevelopment TIF district that encompasses a portion of 2 parcels, which are currently being replatted. The purpose of the TIF is to assist with the redevelopment of a vacant elementary school building within the city to provide space for private commercial use, including child daycare center, community gym, office space, or similar use. The 60,000 square foot building is located at 225 3rd Avenue at the intersection of 3rd Avenue and 2nd Street East in the city. The vacant elementary school property has been determined to be substandard. The city has indicated in writing that the development would not be reasonably expected to occur solely through private investment within the foreseeable future. The city intends to issue PAYGO tax increment financing revenue note to reimburse the developer for public development costs. Tax increment will only be used to reimburse the developer for eligible costs. One thing to note here is the county does not currently receive property taxes from these parcels as they are owned by the school district. The proposed TIF is expected to generate a total of about $79,000 annually from the 3 major taxing jurisdictions, or about $25,000 for Goodhue County alone. More detailed information can be found in the attached analysis that has been completed by Northland Securities. Again, City of Wanamingo is not seeking approval of the proposed TIF, and the board is limited in the actions it can take. There is going to be a public hearing on Monday, November 17th at approximately 7 p.m. to receive public comment on the establishment of the proposed TIF district. If the county wishes, they can submit in writing some comments no later than 30 days of receiving the written notice. Staff doesn't see any issues with the proposed TIF. However, if the board would like to submit any questions, I would be more than willing to share those with the city.
Questions? I hope that goes forward and they can redevelop it into very usable community services.
Sorry. That was one of the things that came up at the Housing Summit this past week in Red Wing, and that is the redevelopment of sites rather than focusing on new building where you have to put in all the infrastructure as well. So I hope it goes forward as well.
Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Administration Semtra Housing Trust Fund, Housing Trust Fund. And I think we have Buffy online, and I know we have Bob here.
Yeah, Buffy's taking this one.
All right, go ahead, Buffy.
Well, good morning. I'm Buffy Baranek. I am consulting for Semtra at this point, not representing Semtra as their executive director. We had planned to have this on an earlier board meeting, but just didn't work out that way. Semtra is requesting the board approve a $30,000 grant to Habitat for Humanity for rural rehab work. And when I say rural, I mean outside of the city limits of Red Wing, in the service area of Semtra. A similar program is already in existence with the Red Wing HRA. And in your packet, you will see a formal write-up that was presented and approved by the Semtra board. This money that's being requested was actually earmarked by the Goodhue County Housing Trust Fund Subcommittee. And that was earmarked about 3 years ago. Our initial plan was to create a rural rehab with 100% payback. Concurrently, Bob was working on a program within the city of Red Wing, and it is a tiered payback. Use of housing trust fund dollars require incomes to be at or below 80% area median income. Bob's program does too, and this was a way to demonstrate need and also test the waters for setting up a program that would partially revolve. The reason why we are in front of you today is because not all of the loan dollars would be approved. It is on a sliding scale based on income, which is, I believe, on the second to the last page of your packet. I am going to now turn it over to Bob to talk a little bit about the program and address any questions that you may have for him, or the process. You can ask me questions as well regarding the process of earmarking the money or the approvals at the Semtra board.
Okay, Bob? State your name for the record.
Sure. Is this on?
I think it's on.
I'm Bob Hawley, Executive Director for Goodhue County Habitat for Humanity, and this home revitalization program that we've had in place for years has become more robust with a grant from the state of Minnesota. We've hired a construction manager who's in the process of getting his contractor license. We've got a new van that we can travel around the county now to fix up people's homes and help them as needed. The program, home revitalization, amounts to mainly critical home repair, doors, windows, roofing and so forth, and then aging in place, older people that want to stay in their home and as long as possible and remain there safely. So ramps, maybe a walk-in shower, those types of things. So the applicants or the people apply, everything we do fits into the 30 to 80% income, area median income. So they apply, we review their application, we have income information that we use to judge how we would handle this project for them. We approve the project and then we proceed with a memorandum of understanding with the applicant, and they understand going in that they may have to, or they will be paying back some of the project costs. And that those funds would go right back into the same pot they came out of to be used at a later date for future projects. So that's the way the program is set up in Red Wing. The HRA and the city have funded that program for 3 years. So we're hoping that you'll see fit to fund this type of work outside of the Red Wing city limits.
Questions? I think this went through the Housing Trust Fund Committee, went through the SEMPRA board.
Correct.
And now it's back to us. That's a lot of Captain May-Eyes. So, any questions? Motion to go ahead.
I'll move going ahead with the proposal as presented.
Second.
Been moved and seconded, we go ahead with the proposal as presented. Any further questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Thank you. Thank you for the work you do around county.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bob.
All right, next one is ICWA crew.
Stacy Lance has this item.
Okay.
Good morning.
Morning.
So in front of you is an opportunity to give notice to the state of Minnesota to no longer continue with the ICWIC program, so the Institution Community Work Crew contract. If you recall, we had the ICWIC program and we had the Sentence to Serve program. The state of Minnesota eliminated the Sentence to Serve program. You as a county board chose to start our own Sentence to Serve program, which is now up and running. We have a current contract with the state of Minnesota for the work crew that comes out of the correctional facility. That's effective through June 30th, 2027. We're giving the board the opportunity at this time to give notice to the state of Minnesota that we no longer need that crew, which we have for 20 hours a week since we have our own program implemented, which then could reflect some budget savings for 2026 and beyond. It's roughly $54,000 annually that we spend on that program. If the board is interested in that, we'd be seeking that direction today, and we would be giving the state of Minnesota notice that the program, we'd no longer be contracting as of 12/31/2025.
I just have a question. Do you see downsides to terminating the county's involvement with that program?
We don't. We've had conversations amongst Public Works, Facilities, and Maintenance. The 20 hours a week that is provided to us work, we feel will be picked up with a Sentence to Serve crews, whether it's juveniles or adults.
Thank you.
So what I'm hearing is that us running Sentence to Serve, we're going to get more hours of work out of the people who go into that program versus what we were getting when the state was running the program.
Well, previously the state had 25% of that contract, as far as Sentence to Serve. So it was a 75-25 split as far as what the county got. The other thing that we're doing is that we're taking a closer look at the work that the crews are actually doing. So they'll be providing work for Goodhue County and, showing us the cost savings of the work that they're doing for us, but also they've done work for other entities. They'll still be doing some of that. Some of those include our outside agencies, but maybe more on a limited basis. But also what kind of work can be provided in the communities for the juveniles that pushes more on the restorative justice piece.
Go ahead.
Do we supply that crew to the other agencies for free?
We do not. So if you are a levy authority, this is actually going to come through on the fee schedule this year. In the past, we've charged $200 for a full day for the Sentence to Serve crew, $100 for a half day, so either 8 hours or 4 hours. We are requesting to increase that fee on the fee schedule to $350 for a full day to $200 for a half day, I believe. And that'll be effective in 2026. We have not adjusted that rate since 2013.
Is there a different cost to nonprofits?
There is not. Depending on the different work that needs to be done and the different classifications of the individuals doing it, I believe we have some boundaries with juveniles, whether or not we can charge for the work that's being done by the juveniles. I don't think that we can. No, we can't. So if juveniles are doing the work with the nonprofits, then we don't charge for those days.
So this would go into effect,
January
basically
1.
what you're saying, it's a $54,000 savings for 26 and half of that for 27.
It'd be $54,000 for 26 and $54,000 for 27.
I thought you said it ended in
You're right. It would have ended in
half a
July.
year of 27,
Yeah,
the
we would have
contract.
been looking at renewing the contract, so that's correct.
I'll make a motion to terminate the ICWA contract effective December 31st, 2025.
Second.
Moved and second, we terminate the contract with the state for ICWA crew. Any further discussion? Is there other entities that would pick up that ICWA crew from?
So currently with that crew leader in that contract, the city of Red Wing holds the other 20 hours a week contract. In full transparency, I had the conversation with the ICWIC supervisor at the state of Minnesota and mentioned that this was going to be coming in front of you today. They said that there is people asking for contracted time for ICWIC crews. Whether the city of Red Wing would maybe choose to pick those 2 days up, there's other places in the state of Minnesota that are requesting work to be done too. So they're aware that this decision was being brought before the board today.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
For your information, new and old business, county access management and control ordinance.
That's me. Our current access management ordinance does not seem, specifically in the rural areas, doesn't seem to meet the needs, desires, and wants of a lot of the rural taxpayers. So I'm asking that we move it to the planning commission so they can reevaluate it. Maybe it's perfect, maybe it's not, but see if they can possibly tweak it so that it'll better serve our rural customers, rural taxpayers. That's my motion, is to move the ordinance to be reevaluated in the planning commission.
I'll second it.
Been moved and seconded that we have the county access management control ordinance evaluated by the planning commission. Can I ask, is that really the appropriate place for that to be evaluated?
Well, I kind of had that same question in my mind. It's a little bit of in between public works and a little bit between land use management. So, and typically what we do is have staff come up with options and then present it. But I don't know, Megan and Jake, do you guys want to come up and just thoughts? Because it's managed, certainly the access is managed in public works.
Well,
So, and I think they put
because
the original
planning,
policy together.
the planning commission's charge is to deal with the zoning ordinance, not access, not roads, not, it just doesn't seem like the right place nor the right jurisdiction for them to be talking about.
But I think those are all issues when we look at it as a planning
But you're referring it to a committee that doesn't have jurisdiction over it. That's what I'm looking at. Their charge is not road management.
Well, and maybe to clarify, I'm not asking them to take it over, but the planning commission is made up of members of the county. I would much rather have them, I don't know, would they look at all our other ordinances and stuff, zoning or whatever issues, so it's a bigger issue, and I guess that body, that planning commission, I feel would be very well versed in looking at it because of the rural makeup of a lot of the members, the communication that those members have with other people of the rural, it seems to be a rural issue. They don't have to they're not gonna redo it, they still have to follow regulations and stuff we do, but I think it would be a better voice committee that would be able to evaluate the situation and better give this board an answer.
Seems more fitting to go to the land committee than it does to zoning, which is totally around zoning. Go ahead.
Who did it the first time in 2006?
Well, it was adopted by the county board, but it was done with through the Public Works. And
Public Works?
Public Works, MnDOT was involved, other counties were involved in how we wrote that to meet the regulations around accesses and all of that.
Okay.
Go ahead. Whoever wants to go.
Well, I think I can start. As I mentioned, I think this was done through Public Works last time. I think Greg Isaacson was the one that primarily spearheaded it. So with that in mind, I mean, I think there's probably some validity to it going through Land Committee and ultimately through Public Works, but I can defer to Megan on the ordinance piece of it.
Well, first, I'm still getting to know the Planning Advisory Committee and kind of where their areas of expertise are. I would say zoning is what they're primarily focused on. Putting an access control management ordinance in front of them would take some education. I'm absolutely willing to present it to them. I mean, it's not an issue. If I'm directed by the board, no problem. The way I read the ordinance is it feels like it's changes would need to be really recommended by somebody who has some background in traffic engineering and traffic control. But where land use can overlap it, I think, is when we're reviewing new conditional uses, variances, plats. That to me is a good time to look at, well, how many accesses do you have? And that is something that, you know, maybe gets incorporated. Maybe there's an overlap in departments down the road. Maybe the ordinance states that when a land use application comes in, part of that review is, are you still reviewing all your, or still using all your access points? How are they used? And the purpose there would be to correct, you know, decades-old issues essentially and catch presumably new ones. Because I think what I've heard the board say is they want the ordinance to be equitable, where, you know, your neighbor down the road maybe has 3 or 4 access points, but the new access is being scrutinized. And so the way we can catch that is through, you know, when a new application comes in, we sort of evaluate them. But yeah, I guess, I mean, I'm willing to take on whatever the board directs, but I would question the traffic engineering kind of technical know-how of the Planning Commission.
Would the Public Works refer back to Planning Advisory? I mean, I understand the technical side of it and the engineering side of it, but, you know, what I'm looking at, there's some situations that it's pretty practical that this would work, you know, but, you know, how can we find and I know we did a variance on this last one. I mean, we'll never be able to avoid variances, people are going to ask, but how much is that consideration taken into
The consideration of future variances?
Yeah, the situation of, right, somebody comes in and asks for a variance versus what was here. I mean, whether any of this is gonna change, I don't know. But somehow I wanna find it easier for a person in the country to start a business, to have the access. And I understand safety is an issue, and I think that was the reason why we did this, because supposedly they were loading out on the road, is what we were told. But what, I don't know, it's just, it's gray to me. I want to work with people. I look at this and saying, whoa, no, we're not going to work with people. And is there a way to soften that?
Well, I mean, certainly from Public Works standpoint, what we would recommend for modifications to this would have to be based on something, whether it's MnDOT, whether it's the AASHTO Green Book, which has several guidelines. We would ultimately look to have a basis for whatever modifications we make to the ordinance. Whether that whether that eases more variance requests or not, I don't know. But that would be our first step, would be to check the ordinance today for conformance with state and federal guidelines that are effective as of now.
Well, I think what Todd, you're probably in the same boat that I'm at, is that if all things being equal, if one individual wants to, because of expansion in their farm, expansion of business, wants to put a secondary driveway 100 yards away from their current driveway, which has no line of sight, has no safety issues, based on our current ordinance writing, it's not allowed. And you being in the country, me being in the country, driving throughout the roads, you can say it is done, has been done, continues to be done, defies logic and common sense. Maybe I'm interpreting not what you're saying, but that's where I'm looking for, is that we, based on the current ordinance, you cannot do that. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. Public Works Directors up here said you can't do it, not for financial reasons, economic, any other reasons you can't do it. Ordinance says you can't do it. And what I'm seeing and what people in the rural area are asking and looking for, we should be able to do this because it has been done, is continuing to be done. There's not a safety issue involved in it. Common sense dictates we should be able to be done. That's what I would like to see with the change of the ordinance.
I'm not opposed to looking at it. I just don't think land use or planning commission is the right place. I think land committee and public works is the right place to look at it. The people who work on the planning commission have enough stuff to deal with, and they're dealing with a big ordinance right there. This has different implications. I think I said it at the last meeting. Once a driveway's put in, it becomes county property to take care of. And you may not think a driveway is an impediment on the road, but when you go off the road and hit that driveway with your car, you're now airborne. You're not just going to end up in the ditch. So there are implications that the books you talk about and the statute or the guidelines you talk about are why we have this. And it was adopted in 2006, and you can go back and look at zoning maps back a long ways before that on our website. And you will find multiple places where there's more than one driveway and they're too close together. Obviously, that's why in 2006, somebody said, we got to slow this train down and come up with some more guidelines that don't end up with us having that many more driveways to maintain long-term for the county, because once it's in, it's ours. We have to put the culverts in, we have to fix them. If there's a drainage issue, it's ours. It's not the landowner, it's ours, and the public probably doesn't want to have that many. So that's why I think they come up in 2006 and did this, because they saw that problem. So I'm not opposed to looking at it, but I don't think the Planning Commission is the right place to go. They have enough on their plate with that. And it doesn't really go through the variance process at Board of Adjustment. They are dealing with a different animal than this. I think it needs to go to the Land Committee, and if that's where it needs to go, then let's evaluate it there.
I'm not sure if the land committee, what that's made up of, that they're any more experienced in access than the planning commission, but either which way. Or we can simply give it to Public Works to have it. And I stated what my objective is, that I think the taxpayers want. If you folks agree, which I don't want to assume that you're going to, but the objective, so if we want to get to a point where Public Works brings it back to us with that stated goal in mind, if my fellow commissioners agree with me that that is a stated goal, we don't have to go to a committee, we can give it to Public Works to reevaluate
The
and bring it right
stated
back
goal
to
is
us.
to get more accesses?
No,
Well, that's what I'm hearing. What is the stated goal?
to allow an individual to have access to their property when it's all things being equal is feasible, it's not a safety issue. If I add on, we can use Mr. Betcher's example, okay? I think it's ridiculous that anybody that we're looking at it, there's not a safety issue involved in road travel, anything that anybody's shown us, Public Works hasn't shown us. It's just not compliance with the current ordinance.
Okay.
So why can't I have it 400 feet apart? Why do I have to have it 550 feet apart? Nobody showed me or told me why that 400 feet, other than it's in violation of the ordinance, what's wrong with the 400 feet? So that is my stated objective. If we can get to that through Public Works giving us redirection on it, I'm all for it.
Linda?
Just following up and going back to Mr. Betcher's issue, then the culvert that he put in,
It has nothing to do with it.
well, then wouldn't the county,
No,
Have had
I'm
to
talking
put
about
the culvert?
reevaluating the ordinance.
Yeah,
we can
yeah.
use Mr. Betcher as his placement as an example. It's nothing to do with how or what he did on the driveway. It just,
but if
That
I
is nothing.
follow up on what Brad's saying, then would it have been the county's responsibility to put in the culvert?
No, when someone, you can allow, and that's what the permit does, allows someone to put a culvert and a driveway that attaches to our road, to our specs.
Yeah.
And after that's in and it meets all the qualifications, it becomes county property to take care of it from then till perpetuity. So every time someone puts in a driveway, whether it's for a house, whether it's for a business, whether it's for a residence, or a farm, or just to get into a field, once it's put in, the owner pays for it, but from then on, the county's job is to take care of it and manage it and replace the culvert when it rots out, and all of those costs are borne by the county residents, not by the owner.
And the additional maintenance on it, adding rock and things like that? I mean, we don't have to add rock to an approach.
If we redo the road, we're gonna have to add rock to there, yeah. If they want more rock on their own, I would say they probably can, but it's not, if it's not a safe access, then it's our job from right away to road for us to take care of it.
Typically, when we do a resurfacing or reconstruction project on any road, we'll either, on a resurfacing project, we'll either refresh the rock on these approaches oftentimes, and then a reconstruction project will completely rebuild them at our cost.
So that's why I don't think planning commission is the right place for it. I'm not opposed to looking at it. I'm opposed to going into it with a preconceived notion we're going to change it. I think we need to evaluate whether it needs to be changed.
I'm not sure where the right place is, but I think having members of the public be participating in the discussion is important. So if that's not what the land committee is, that way I think the planning commission would solve that. And I believe right now it's the same access rules, whether you're on a county gravel road that has very little traffic or you're on a county state aid highway. Putting in a farm road that gets used a few times a year. So I'm thinking it's a one-size-fits-all, and certainly a gravel road where there's not much traffic, and even though
The primary thing that differentiates the spacing for accesses is speed.
Well, but the speed limit on a gravel road is still 55, I believe. But I think if you looked at the average speeds on those gravel roads, they aren't anywhere near 55. And I think if you looked at a county state aid highway, they're probably over 55.
Correct.
And so then also, I'd like some information about whether there really are accidents at these, there's places, I think about my husband's farm, and where his comes to the road, there's 3 driveways within, 20 feet of each other, and to my knowledge, there's never been an accident there. That's one example, but I would just like information. It's really safety that I'm most concerned about. And if putting more accesses on a gravel road really doesn't increase safety, or if there's no documentation of that, I'd feel differently about it.
We can certainly generate crash histories for corridors, from the past. I would simply mention that anytime you add an access, you're introducing conflict points on the roadway, which in and of itself introduces increased potential for crashes, which in theory lowers safety.
So to me, I'd like to let people use their land in the best way for them possible and not ignore safety. But everything has some risk, so that's just life.
So if nothing is done or nothing changes this, the only way the landowner would have to come with asking for a variance, like Mr. Vetcher. And then it would be evaluated at that time and said, okay, we'll grant you a variance or not.
But I think you're supposed to meet all the criteria. So I think the question is that really right on a gravel road that gets 10 cars a day? For me, the safety was the biggest concern.
So the ongoing cost doesn't matter.
My experience in the country is limited. I'm thinking about all the farmers I know that have multiple accesses, and to my knowledge, the county's never been asked to do anything with them. Doesn't mean it's, maybe.
Just were on the road tour and saw one that wanted us to do something.
We did, but,
Yes.
so
Yes,
I'm
they
talking
do.
about.
We don't hear about it, but they do.
I'm talking about the dozen people or so I know and what
Yeah.
they say, and that's a
Yeah.
small sample size and not statistically significant, but
We don't hear about all the stuff that Public Works has to do, so. There's a motion on the table to put it, Scott wants to.
I was going to say, sometimes when these things come up and they don't fit somewhere good, we create a committee, and to me, this sounds like a time when you should probably do that, and typically, you'd probably have Jake and Megan and Jess on that, plus 2 commissioners, and I would probably suggest that Jason would be one of them, but to study this issue and come back with a recommendation. And the ordinance process does have to come back through this body, so,
And it does have to have a public hearing.
oh, yeah.
So we have a motion. Send it to Planning Commission.
Okay, so looking at it from 2006, I would say it definitely could stand to be looked at again since it's been 20 years. I also don't know where the best place for it is to go. And I think maybe following up with what Scott's saying, a specific committee with the right people to look at it.
That's fine. I just wanted more of the reason the planning commission was, and Todd, you can maybe identify that too, is that was made up of individuals throughout the county. I don't know what the land committee's made up of that or that it belonged, but I thought getting more of a voice of rural people on that committee was where it belonged to give more of an opinion to this board to make that decision. And again, like I said, the safety issue is going to be there no matter what we do. They don't have to be experts in the ordinance, but I believe if you were able to get more of an opinion or assessment from people in a rural area that this is not unusual, it's not, and that's what they want, that's what their desire is, to do that. But I'm fine with forming our own committee to specifically study it and get to, but that, again, that is my objective, or I think that's where the citizens want us to be here to get to, so. If my fellow commissioners don't agree, then we don't even have the committee, so.
We have a couple of PAC committee members that I definitely would want to be on this, and that's where when Jason brought this in. But, there's some definitely qualified people to look at this situation, but there's several that wouldn't be qualified to look at this, so, so if we, and that's my feeling, but we could, yeah, and maybe that's the way to start, is start as a committee instead of running it right through the.
Or would it be better to run it through the planning commission first, just with the impression of what we have? And it gets kind of convoluted either which way, so.
I guess I would, as we've been talking now, I would say let's hold off.
So are you okay with rescinding the motion, your second?
Yep, I will
Okay,
rescind
so
my
I'll
second.
make a new motion that we form a new committee to study the county access management.
Second. Of board members and some citizens?
It's going to be rather challenging to,
You need to kind of specify what the makeup is so that appointments can happen.
no, because that's not the moment, because people have things to do during the day. The planning commission already has people appointed to it. So I have no interest in making if you want to make a new committee with 2 board members and 3 staff members, fine. But as to trying to pull people
Okay.
out of the public
2 board
and
members
try
and
to
2
appoint
staff
that
members.
makes no sense.
2 board members, at least 2 board members and 2 staff members.
3 staff.
3 staff. Okay? Is that where you want it to go?
That's fine.
All
yes.
right. Is there a second to that?
Second that.
All right. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's the same.
Okay, who in addition to Jason wants to be on it?
I'll do it.
Okay, Jason and Todd.
And
Thank you.
Megan, just for clarity,
That's the right one for the-
and part of the reason I didn't
Good,
want,
but I can do it.
part of the reason you have more things to do with the planning commission, you're going to start studying the ordinances around density, but not really around density, more about we're getting all these plats, we're getting all these splits, and is our subdivision ordinance correct? Is there some ability, and you're forming a committee for that out of the pack to do that too?
Correct. Mr. Chair, what I've been looking at kind of over the last year and just sort of highlighting areas in our ordinance where there's maybe, where the language is ambiguous, where maybe where staff is interpreting it one way, the public is consistently interpreting it a different way, and/or instances where there could be more cohesion between the subdivision ordinance and the zoning ordinance, specifically as it relates to the subdivision of land, platting of land. And then add on top of that, I have some planning advisory commissioners, and I would say some members of the Board of Adjustment who hear variances, who have sort of noted there's areas that it's probably time to look at in the ordinance, specifically related to residential density and whether or not homes can be built. I would say the preference that I'm hearing is there ways that we can allow more homes to be built without rezoning to R1? So I have a list of, 8 to 10 sort of topics. And I'm looking,
That
I
was
actually spoke to a member of the Board of Adjustment yesterday, Commissioner Reichsigal, who is interested in spearheading this and helping kind of articulate the concerns he hears.
We have a lot of diversity out in the county, and there's several townships that won't want any more homes, and then there's some close to our communities that, they want to definitely add housing, so there's definitely differences.
That was part of the reason why I didn't want to give you another task for that group, because you're already going to be pulling from them for that committee to some degree.
Yeah, I'm still trying to define scope so it doesn't become too massive of a project and then just collapse under its own weight. But yeah, there's some things that I think maybe have not been looked at in a while, and the county has maybe, things have changed in townships. Things have changed with demographics. Certainly things have changed with the economy and the cost of building.
All right. Committee reports. Ed.
Okay, actually, this is kind of following up with what Megan was talking about. The Housing Summit in Red Wing was last week, and the housing shortage is negatively affecting economic development. The cost of building has gone up 50% in 5 years. If you want to try and build a $250,000 house, you need an $81,000 income, and a $400,000 house requires a $129,000 income. So one of the things that was suggested was connecting with employers to be able to find out what is the average income of, not your average employee, but at least to find out what can they afford, so that you've got, so that we're educating employers about housing as well. And then the last thing was the importance of explaining what affordable housing is to the public. And maybe that is something that eventually the communication people between the different cities and the county, we can all get on the same page with a marketing thing of what we say to explain what affordable housing is.
Affordable versus
Well, there's
force versus, there's so many definitions.
There's subsidized, which of course is what so many people think is affordable housing and workforce housing, but that's different. Affordable housing is workforce housing, but you got to know how much money your workers are being paid. And then there's market rate, and then I've got attached single family too, but anyway, it's a very convoluted.
Housing's complicated. Any other committee reports? Just a comment, Buffy was on here earlier today from the HRA. She has formally retired from that job. She's hired back on a contract basis for a while. We had a meeting yesterday and picked candidates to replace her. We will be doing interviews in December with those candidates and hopefully have somebody in place shortly after the first of the year. Anybody else? Claims.
Motion to pay the bills.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We pay the claims. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Carries. We'll take